The day the ships came was like any other for Captain Tae-ho Kim. He stood in his family's farm field outside Seoul, enjoying his first week of leave in 8 months. The morning air felt cool against his face as he helped his father check the rice crops. Then the sky turned dark. "What is that?" his father asked, pointing up. Tae-ho looked and felt his heart stop. Massive black ships blocked the sun. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built, shaped like giant arrows pointing. "Down at Earth, get inside," Tae-ho said. His voice was calm but firm. Years of special forces training had taught him how to hide fear. "Call Mom and Juri. Tell them to come home now." But it was too late for warnings. The voice came from everywhere at once, booming in perfect Korean, then repeating in every language on Earth. "People of this world, you are now under the protection of the Krith Empire. Do not resist. Compliance means survival." Tae-ho's phone rang. It was his commander. "Kim, are you seeing this?" Colonel Park's voice sounded strained. "Yes, sir. Orders? Report to base immediately. All leaves cancelled." By the time Tae-ho reached his unit, the first attacks had already started. The aliens, the Krith, had targeted military bases first. Their weapons cut through Earth's best defenses like they were made of paper. Tae-ho's team was sent to protect civilians in Seoul. They arrived to find people running in panic as smaller alien ships flew through the streets. The ships shot strange blue beams that didn't seem to hurt people but made them fall down, unable to move. "Hold position," Tae-ho told his 4-man team as they crouched behind a fallen bus. "Wait for my signal." They watched as aliens stepped out of a landed ship. The Krith were tall with gray-blue skin and 4 arms. They wore armor that glowed slightly and carried weapons that looked too light to be dangerous. "Fire," Tae-ho ordered. Their bullets hit the aliens but bounced off an invisible shield around them. The Krith turned slowly, almost lazily, and pointed their weapons. 3 of Tae-ho's men fell instantly. "Fall back." Tae-ho grabbed the 4th man, dragging him to safety. For 3 days, Earth's armies tried to fight. For 3 days, they failed. The Krith had technology humans couldn't understand. Their shields stopped bullets. Their ships could fly faster than missiles. Their weapons could stun or kill as they chose. On the 4th day, most countries surrendered. Tae-ho didn't. He made his way back to his family farm, traveling at night, avoiding the alien patrols. When he arrived, he found his home partly destroyed. His father sat on the porch steps, face in his hands. "Where's Mom? Where's Juri?" Tae-ho asked, fearing the answer. His father looked up with empty eyes. "Your mother is inside. She's hurt, but alive." "Juri?" His voice broke. "They took her. The aliens came and took her for study," they said. Rage filled Tae-ho, but he pushed it down. Rage would not help now. Planning would. Thinking would. 3 weeks later, the leader of the Krith asked to speak to Earth's remaining leaders. The meeting was broadcast worldwide. The alien called himself Commander Davik. He stood tall, his 4 arms held behind his back in what seemed like a military stance. "Your species has been waging primitive war for mere millennia," Davik said, his voice translated by a small device on his chest. "We have perfected the art of conquest across thousands of worlds for over 15 million years. Submit or be eradicated." Earth's leaders signed the surrender papers one by one. The Krith began to set up their rule. They built bases in major cities. They took resources. They established study centers where they took humans for testing. But not everyone accepted the new rulers. 2 months after the invasion, Tae-ho received a coded message from an old army friend. There was a meeting for those who wanted to fight back. It would be dangerous just to attend. Tae-ho went without hesitation. The meeting was held in an old subway tunnel. 20 former soldiers from different countries sat in a circle speaking, in whispers. When Tae-ho entered, his friend Hanbin stood up with a smile. "I knew you would come," Hanbin said. Before the invasion, he had been an engineer in the Korean army, known for fixing things no one else could understand. "I'm looking for my sister," Tae-ho said simply. A woman stepped forward. She had sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "I might be able to help with that. I'm Mi-suk. I worked in intelligence before. And I can help keep your people alive, said a young man, barely old enough to be a soldier. I'm Do-hyun, I was a medic. Tae-ho looked around the circle. What are we planning to do? We can't fight them directly. An older man with a scar across his face spoke up. No, we can't beat them in open battle. But humans have a long history of fighting stronger enemies. We call it asymmetric warfare. Guerrilla tactics, another added. Exactly, Hanbin said, excitement in his voice. And I've been studying their tech. They're advanced, yes, but also predictable. Their shields have patterns, their patrols follow exact schedules. Mi-suk nodded. They think they're perfect. That's their weakness. For the next 3 months, Tae-ho and the others built their network. They found more people willing to fight. They gathered weapons the aliens had missed. Most importantly, they watched and learned. The Krith were creatures of habit. They did everything the same way every time. They never changed patrol routes. They never varied their response to problems. They were like machines following a program. It's because they've never needed to adapt, Mi-suk explained one night as they planned their first real attack. They've been winning for so long they forgot how to think on their feet. The target was a small Krith supply depot. Just 10 aliens guarded it. The plan was simple. Create a distraction, slip in, take weapons and communication devices, and leave. But when they arrived, they found twice as many guards as expected. Fall back, Tae-ho whispered to his team. We'll try another day. Wait, Hanbin said, studying the aliens through binoculars. Look at them. Half of them are standing completely still. Tae-ho looked. Hanbin was right. 5 of the Krith were moving, patrolling. The other 5 stood like statues. They're holograms, Mi-suk realized. They're stretching their forces, thin, using fake guards to look stronger. Tae-ho smiled for the first time in months. So they're not as all-powerful as they want us to think. The raid was a success. They took what they needed and left without losing anyone. It was a small victory, but an important one. It proved the Krith could be fooled. As they returned to their hideout, Do-hyun, who rarely spoke, said something that stuck with Tae-ho. You know what the difference is between us and them? The young medic asked. They fight because they want to conquer. We fight because we have no choice. Tae-ho nodded. And that's why we'll win. Because we have everything to lose. That night, Tae-ho made a promise to himself and to his captured sister. He would find her, he would free her, and he would show these aliens that they had made a terrible mistake in coming to Earth. Because humans knew something about war that the Krith had forgotten after millions of years of easy victories. War isn't about who has the best technology or the biggest army. War is about will. And humans never stop fighting for what they love. 6 months had passed since the Krith took over Earth. 6 months of hiding, watching, and waiting. Tae-ho's resistance group had grown from 20 people to over 200, spread across what used to be South Korea. They met in an abandoned subway station beneath Seoul. The air was damp and cold, but no one complained. They were alive and they were free. That was more than many could say. They're moving people again, Mi-suk said, pointing to marks on a worn paper map. 3 trucks left the Seoul Study Center heading east. Tae-ho frowned. East? Toward Pyeongchang? Yes. That's the 4th group this month. Hanbin sat in the corner taking apart a small Krith device. His fingers were stained with grease and his eyes were red from lack of sleep. Any luck? Tae-ho asked him. Hanbin grinned, holding up the device. I think I got it working. It's some kind of translator, but I've changed it. Now it should pick up their communications too. This was the breakthrough they had been waiting for. Until now, they had only been able to guess at the Krith's plans. Turn it on, Mi-suk said, leaning forward. Hanbin pressed a button. Static filled the air, then words. The voice was flat and mechanical, but the words were clear. Korean. Sector 7 patrol complete. No resistance activity detected. Main base reports human test subjects responding well to Series 5. Request permission to expand testing. Permission granted. Increase subject pool by 50 units. Tae-ho's hands tightened into fists. Units. They're talking about people. Do-hyun, who had been treating a wounded fighter in the corner, looked up. My cousin was taken last month. They came to his house and said he was selected for advanced placement. No one has seen him since. Hanbin kept adjusting the device. Suddenly, a new voice came through, deeper and with a tone of authority. "This is Commander Davik. Status report on Earth pacification." Another voice answered. "Proceeding as planned, Commander. Most human military forces have been neutralized. Some small resistance remains, but poses no significant threat." Good. These humans are particularly primitive. Their warfare methods are wasteful and inefficient. They developed so many different ways to fight when direct confrontation is clearly superior. Taeho and Misuk looked at each other. In those words, they heard something important. "They don't understand us," Misuk whispered. "No," Taeho agreed. "They don't." Later that night, Taeho called together the resistance leaders. They gathered around a small fire, careful to shield the light from any Krith patrols flying overhead. "We've been fighting the wrong way," Taeho said. "We've been trying to hit them where they're strongest, attacking supply depots and patrol units. What should we do instead?" asked one of the newer members. "We use what they see as our weakness. They think our different fighting styles are inefficient, but that's actually our strength." Taeho pointed to the map. "They follow patterns. They do the same thing every time in the same way, so we'll do the opposite. We'll be unpredictable." For the next week, they planned. Misuk created an intelligence network, recruiting people who worked in Krith facilities as cleaners or food servers. These people became their eyes and ears, reporting on Krith movements and plans. Hanbin trained others to use the communication devices he had modified. Soon they could listen to Krith orders and warnings in real time. Their first new attack targeted a Krith patrol, but not in the usual way. Instead of ambushing them, they set up fake resistance camps, leading the aliens, on a chase that wasted their time and resources. The second attack used old Korean War tunnels to move fighters right under a Krith checkpoint. They planted small bombs that didn't hurt anyone but made a lot of noise and confusion. "I don't understand," said one young fighter after a successful mission. "We didn't kill any of them. We didn't take anything. What did we accomplish?" Taeho smiled. "We made them adjust. Every time they have to change their plans, they get a little less certain, a little less confident." Misuk added, "And we learn more about how they think." The pattern continued for weeks. Each attack was different from the last. Sometimes they used old military tactics from World War II. Other times they borrowed from ancient Korean history. Once they even used techniques from American gangster movies. The Krith began to respond with increasing force. They doubled patrols. They put up more sensors. They even started changing patrol routes. "It's working," Hanbin said excitedly one day. "I intercepted their reports. They're confused about our strategy. They can't predict what we'll do next because there's no pattern." But Taeho's thoughts were never far from his sister. Every night he would look at her picture, wondering if she was still alive. Then one day, Misuk brought news. "I found her," she said quietly. "One of our people saw her name on a transfer list. She's at the main research facility in Pyeongchang." Taeho felt his heart race. Is she okay? She's alive. That's all I know." That night, Taeho couldn't sleep. He walked through the tunnels thinking. The Pyeongchang facility was the most heavily guarded Krith base in Korea. To reach it would be hard enough. To break in seemed impossible. Found Hanbin still awake, working on another device. "What's that?" Taeho asked. Hanbin held up a small round object. "It's one of their security keys. I've been trying to copy it. If I can, we might be able to walk right through their front door." "How close are you?" Hanbin sighed. "Not close enough. I need an actual working key to study." "Then we'll get you one," Taeho decided. The next day, they planned their most daring mission yet. A Krith officer always patrolled the eastern sector of Seoul at the same time each day. He would be their target. The capture went more smoothly than they expected. The Krith had become so focused on looking for large attacks that they missed the 4 humans hiding in an abandoned car. Do-hyun used a stolen stun weapon and the alien officer fell without a sound. They took his security key, his weapon, and most importantly, his communication device. Then they left him tied up where his fellow Krith would find him. They didn't want to kill unless necessary. Back at their base, Hanbin examined the security key with excitement. This is perfect. Give me 3 days and I can make copies. But when they turned on the officer's communication device, they heard something that changed everything. Alert to all units. The human subject, Juri Kim, has been selected for final phase testing. Transfer to orbital facility will commence in 4 days. Special security protocols in effect. Taeho felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. They're taking her off planet in 4 days. Misuk put her hand on his shoulder. Then we have 3 days to plan and 1 day to act. Hanbin looked up from his work. I'll have the keys ready. But Taeho, the Pyeongchang facility, will need more than just a few of us. I know, Taeho said. He looked around at his team, at the people who had fought beside him for months. It's time to show the Krith what human warfare really looks like. We're going to rescue my sister and anyone else we can, and we're going to make sure the Krith remember this day. Do-hyun, usually so quiet, stood up. I'll prepare medical supplies, we'll need them. As word spread through the resistance network about the planned rescue, more fighters volunteered. By the 3rd day, over 50 people were ready to risk everything. Taeho looked at the rough map of the Pyeongchang facility they had drawn based on intelligence reports. Getting in would be hard. Getting out with prisoners would be even harder. But as he had learned during his Special Forces training, impossible missions just required better planning. We leave at dawn, he told his team. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we show the Krith that taking humans was their biggest mistake. The morning of the rescue mission was cold and foggy. Perfect weather to hide their approach to the Krith research facility in Pyeongchang. 50 resistance fighters moved quietly through the forest. They carried a mix of human weapons and stolen Krith technology. Taeho led the group, with Hanbin, Misuk, and Do-hyun close behind. Hanbin clutched a small bag containing the copied security keys. Remember the plan, Taeho whispered as they reached the edge of the forest. Team 1 creates a distraction at the south gate. Team 2 cuts power to the security systems. Misuk and I use the security keys to enter through the service door. The Krith facility looked like a giant metal box sitting in what used to be the Olympic Stadium. Guards patrolled the walls and flying drones circled overhead. Those drones will spot us soon, Misuk warned. Hanbin smiled and held up a small device. Not if I can help it. He pressed a button, and suddenly the drones all flew in one direction, chasing a false signal. That's our cue, Taeho said. Move out. Team 1 set off smoke bombs and fired shots at the south gate. As expected, most of the guards rushed to respond. Team 2 slipped through a drainage pipe and headed for the power station. Taeho and Misuk, along with 5 others, including Do-hyun, ran to the small service door on the east side. Hanbin's copied key worked perfectly. The door slid open without triggering any alarms. Inside, the facility was stark and clean. White walls, bright lights, and an eerie silence. They moved through empty corridors, following the map Misuk had memorized from their intelligence sources. The holding cells should be 2 levels down, she whispered. They found a stairwell and descended. As they reached the lower level, they heard a loud boom. The lights flickered and went out. Then dim emergency lights came on. Team 2 did it, Taeho said. The main power is down. They moved faster now, knowing the Krith would be busy dealing with both the attack at the gate and the power outage. Soon they reached a long hallway lined with doors. Each door had a small window. Taeho looked through the first window and saw a human woman sitting on a bed. She looked thin and pale. We found them, he said. Do-hyun used another copied key to open the first cell. The woman looked up, fear in her eyes. We're here to help you, Misuk said gently. Can you walk? The woman nodded. Cell by cell, they freed the captives. Some could walk on their own. Others needed help. Do-hyun checked each person quickly, giving medicine to those who needed it most. Where's Juri? Taeho asked one of the freed prisoners. Juri Kim? They took her and some others to the special testing area this morning. Down that way. The man pointed to the end of the hall. Taeho turned to Misuk. Get these people out, I'll find Juri. Not alone, she said firmly. I'm coming too, Do-hyun added, picking up his medical bag. They left the freed prisoners with the rest of their team and continued deeper into the facility. The special testing area had better security. The copied key didn't work on the first door they tried. Stand back, Taeho said. He placed a small explosive charge on the lock. The blast was small but effective. The door swung open. Inside they found more cells, but these were different. They had more equipment, more monitoring devices. And in the third cell, they found Ju-ri. She was lying on a bed with tubes connected to her arms. Machines beeped next to her. She looked so thin and pale that for a moment Taeho feared they were too late. Do-hyun quickly checked the machines. She's stable. They've sedated her, but she's healthy. He carefully removed the tubes and monitoring devices. Ju-ri's eyes fluttered open. She looked confused, then focused on Taeho's face. Brother? Her voice was barely a whisper. Is this a dream? Taeho fought back tears. No, little sister, I'm really here. We're taking you home. There are others, she said, trying to sit up. In the last room, important prisoners. Mi-suk checked the final door. It's locked. Different system. Taeho hesitated. The plan had been simple. Get in, find Ju-ri, get out. Every minute they stayed increased the danger, but he couldn't leave others behind. Open it, he decided. This time it took 2 explosive charges to break the lock. Inside were 5 more prisoners, all hooked up to more complex machines. One was an older man with white hair. As Do-hyun checked them, the old man spoke. You must be the resistance we've heard about. His voice was weak, but his eyes were sharp and clear. Who are you? Taeho asked as he helped the man sit up. Dr. Lee. I was the head of South Korea's advanced weapons research before the invasion. All of us here are scientists. They've been extracting information from us. Mi-suk's radio crackled. Taeho, this is Hanbin. The Krith are regrouping. We need to move now. Copy that. We're on our way. Taeho turned to Dr. Lee. Can you walk? The old scientist nodded. Just get these tubes out of me. 5 minutes later, they were moving back toward the exit. The freed prisoners now numbered over 30, far more than they had planned for. Many were weak from their captivity, slowing the group down. As they reached the main level, alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed in the corridors. They've reset the security system, Mi-suk said. New plan, Taeho decided quickly. We can't go back the way we came. He pointed to a large door. What's through there? A freed guard who had worked at the Olympic Stadium before the invasion spoke up. That leads to the vehicle bay. They keep transport ships there. Can anyone fly a Krith ship? Taeho asked. Dr. Lee raised his hand. They forced me to learn their systems. I can fly one of the smaller transports. Then that's our way out. They changed direction, heading for the vehicle bay. When they reached it, they found 3 Krith guards. Taeho and Mi-suk took them down with stolen stun weapons before they could raise an alarm. The bay held 4 small transport ships. Dr. Lee pointed to the nearest one. That will hold all of us. As they began loading the weakest prisoners, a door at the far end of the bay slid open. 10 Krith soldiers rushed in, weapons raised. Get everyone on board! Taeho shouted, taking cover behind a fuel container. He and Mi-suk returned fire, keeping the Krith at bay while the others boarded. Ju-ri, now more alert, helped Do-hyun with the injured. She caught Taeho's eye and pointed urgently to a panel on the wall. The bay doors. They're going to lock us in. Mi-suk saw it too. She aimed carefully and shot the control panel. Sparks flew, and the large bay doors began to open automatically as their emergency systems activated. Go, Taeho shouted to Mi-suk. I'll cover you. She hesitated, then ran for the ship. Taeho fired his weapon continuously, forcing the Krith to take cover. When his weapon's charge ran out, he threw it aside and ran for the ship. A blue energy beam hit the ground at his feet. Another grazed his shoulder, sending pain down his arm. But he kept running. He jumped through the transports, tore just as Dr. Lee fired up the engines. The door closed behind him and the ship rose into the air. Hang on, the old scientist called out. This will be rough. The transport shot forward, out through the bay doors and into the sky. Behind them, 2 Krith ships began pursuit. "Can we outrun them?" Taeho asked, clutching his injured shoulder. Dr. Lee shook his head. "No, but I know their blind spots." He flew the transport low, weaving between mountains and through valleys. The larger Krith ships couldn't follow as easily. Soon they lost one pursuer. The second stayed with them until Dr. Lee flew directly into a bank of thick clouds. When they emerged, they were alone in the sky. "We did it," Misuk said, disbelief in her voice. Juri came to Taiho's side as Do-hyun treated his wound. Her eyes were clearer now, her voice stronger. "Brother, there's something you need to know," she said. "Something I learned while I was their prisoner." Taeho looked at his sister, seeing a new strength in her face. "What is it?" "The Krith have never faced a prolonged resistance before," she said. "On every world they've conquered, they won quickly or destroyed all opposition. They don't know how to fight a long war." Dr. Lee nodded. "She's right, I saw their records. They're following a playbook that's millions of years old. When that fails, they don't know what to do next." Taeho looked around at the freed prisoners, at his team, at his sister. For the first time since the invasion, he felt real hope. "Then, we'll show them something they've never seen before," he said. "We'll show them how humans fight when everything is at stake." 1 month after the Pyeongchang rescue, the resistance had grown stronger than ever. The freed scientists, led by Dr. Lee, helped them understand Krith technology. Juri used her knowledge of the aliens to predict their moves, and most importantly, their success gave people hope. Taeho stood in their new base, a network of caves in the mountains. Around him, hundreds of fighters prepared weapons and studied maps. What had started as a small group was now an army. "The Krith are sending messages to their homeworld," Hanbin reported, looking up from his modified communication device. "They're asking for reinforcements." Misuk frowned. "That means we're hurting them." "It also means more ships will come," Taeho said. "We need to do something big before they arrive." Dr. Lee joined them, carrying a tablet with Krith symbols on its screen. "I think we're ready to launch Operation Echo." Operation Echo was their most ambitious plan yet. Not just a single attack, but hundreds of smaller actions across the globe, all coordinated to confuse and exhaust the Krith. "Is everyone in position?" Taeho asked. Misuk nodded. "We have resistance groups ready in 38 countries, all waiting for our signal." Taeho looked at the faces around him: Hanbin, Misuk, Do-hyun, Juri, and Dr. Lee. Each had suffered. Each had fought back. Now they were about to take the biggest risk yet. "Send the signal," he ordered. That night, Operation Echo began. In Korea, they used ancient battle formations to attack Krith patrols, surrounding them from all sides. In the United States, resistance fighters used tunnels dug under Krith bases. In Africa, they set traps using techniques passed down for generations. In Europe, they turned the aliens' own technology against them. Each attack was different. Each used methods from different times and places in human history. The Krith could not predict what would come next because there was no single pattern to follow. For 3 days, the attacks continued without stopping. The Krith grew increasingly confused. Their commanders gave conflicting orders. Their patrols started shooting at shadows. Hanbin monitored their communications, translating for the others. "They're panicking," he said with a smile. "Commander Davik is demanding explanations, but none of his officers know what to tell him." On the 4th day, Davik made a mistake. In his anger, he ordered a massive attack on Seoul. He wanted to make an example of the city, to show humans what happened when they resisted. But Seoul was empty. The resistance had evacuated the city days before, leaving only automated systems behind. When the Krith ships flew in, they found no one to terrorize. Instead, they flew right into traps set by Dr. Lee and his team. 20 Krith ships were destroyed that day. It was their biggest loss since coming to Earth. Taeho gathered his team to watch the Krith retreat from Seoul. For once, they allowed themselves to celebrate. "This is working better than we hoped," Misuk said, but their celebration was cut short by Hanbin's voice. "Everyone, you need to hear this." He turned up the volume on his communication device. A deep voice spoke in the Krith language. Then the translator converted it to Korean. This is High Command to Earth Force. Your situation is unacceptable. Reinforcements have been dispatched. Estimated arrival, 3 Earth days. You will receive the largest battle fleet ever sent to a minor world. End this resistance or face replacement. The room fell silent. They had expected reinforcements, but not so many, and not so soon. A battle fleet? Do-hyun's voice shook slightly. How can we fight that? Tae-ho looked at Dr. Lee. What do you think? The old scientist was quiet for a moment. They're scared, he finally said. The Krith High Command doesn't send large fleets for minor worlds, as they call them. The fact that they're doing so means we've shaken them. But how do we fight ships in space? Mi-suk asked. Ju-ri, who had been studying Krith defense systems, spoke up. We don't have to fight them in space, we just need to hit them when they're vulnerable. When they land, Tae-ho realized. Exactly, Ju-ri pointed to a map. And I think I know how. Over the next 3 days, they worked non-stop. Dr. Lee and Han Bin built a device that could temporarily disable Krith shields. Ju-ri identified the most likely landing zones for the new fleet. Mi-suk coordinated with resistance groups worldwide. On the 3rd day, their lookouts spotted the ships. Huge black arrows, much larger than the first invasion force, filled the sky. People watched in fear as the fleet took position around Earth. Commander Davik's voice boomed from speakers in every city. People of Earth, your resistance ends today. Surrender now or be destroyed. No one answered. The cities remained empty. The resistance stayed hidden. Frustrated by the silence, Davik ordered his new forces to land and secure major cities. Just as Ju-ri had predicted, the first ships headed for the old government centers: Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and Seoul. Tae-ho and his team were waiting in Seoul, hidden in the subway tunnels beneath the main landing zone. With them were 200 fighters, the best they had. Remember, Tae-ho told them, we get one chance at this. When Han Bin activates the device, we have 5 minutes before their systems reset. Above them, the ground shook as massive Krith ships landed. Dust fell from the tunnel ceiling. Everyone held their breath. Han Bin watched a small screen counting down. 3, 2, 1. Now. He pressed a button on the device Dr. Lee had built. For a moment, nothing happened. Then they heard it, the sound of Krith alarm systems going crazy. It worked, Han Bin shouted. Their shields are down. Move, Tae-ho ordered. They rushed from the tunnels, emerging into daylight. The Krith were in chaos. Their shields were down, their weapons offline. Some tried to run back to their ships while others stood frozen in confusion. Tae-ho led the charge toward the largest ship, Davik's command vessel. Human fighters swarmed over the confused aliens, using both stolen Krith weapons and traditional human arms. Mi-suk and her team secured the outer doors of the command ship. Han Bin hacked the door controls. Within minutes, they were inside. The ship was huge, with long corridors and large rooms filled with technology they didn't understand. But they didn't need to understand it all. They just needed to find Davik. They found him on the command bridge, shouting orders that no one was following. When the doors opened and humans poured in, he turned in shock. Impossible, he said in perfect Korean. You are primitive. You cannot defeat Krith technology. Tae-ho stepped forward. It's not about technology. It's about will. Davik reached for a weapon, but Tae-ho was faster. He knocked the alien commander to the ground and held him there. You think you know war? Tae-ho asked, his voice cold and clear. You haven't seen nothing yet. Humans don't fight because we love conquest. We fight because we refuse to be conquered. Similar scenes were playing out in cities around the world. Resistance fighters captured key Krith ships and commanders. Using the aliens' own communication systems, they broadcast images of the Krith defeat across Earth and to the remaining fleet in orbit. The final blow came when Dr. Lee hacked into the Krith fleet communication system. He sent one message to the Krith High Command along with footage of their defeated forces. Earth is off limits. Leave now, or learn what real war looks like. To everyone's surprise, the remaining fleet retreated. The Krith High Command had never faced a defeat like this. They didn't know how to respond. 2 weeks later, Tai-Ho and Juri stood on their family farm. The house was damaged but standing. Their father worked in the fields, planting new crops. You think they'll come back? Juri asked. Tai-Ho looked at the sky, clear blue without any alien ships blocking the sun. Maybe, he said. But next time we'll be ready. And they'll learn what humans have always known. It's not the size of your army or the advancement of your weapons that wins wars. It's how far you're willing to go to protect what's yours. Across the farm, they could see Hanbin teaching their father how to use modified Krith technology to help crops grow better. Misuk was training new recruits in the barn. Dr. Lee and his team were studying alien devices in what used to be the tool shed. Earth was healing. Humans were rebuilding. And somewhere in space, the Krith were learning a hard lesson about underestimating the species they had dismissed as primitive. Some wars are won with better weapons. Some are won with better strategy. But the war for Earth was won because humans never, ever gave up.